see that it's dark. No, I'll try to use this. It's because I don't know what the hell this is. Good evening, Mari. Thank you for joining the live. Do share the live so that others can know that we're on and join. Welcome to Ink and Impact with Fabian. And this evening we want to talk about at least three steps towards healing. For those who might be grieving or going through the process of loss. So that's what our live is going to be about this evening. So thank you for joining, and do share while we wait on others to enter the room, so that we can encourage each other, possibly inspire somebody, uplift somebody who might be down at this time, going through the process of loss and missing their loved one. So that's what we're about this evening. Are you a Libra, Maury? Is that what that says? Welcome, Latoya. Thank you for joining Ink and Impact with Fabian this evening. Do share the live so that others can join. Like so that we can be ranked. Welcome, Martin Lindo. Welcome, Nick. This evening we want to talk about the process of grieving and look at some steps, strategies that one can employ or towards healing from grief. Michibu, welcome. Thank you for joining the live. Thank you for joining the live. I trust that you're all doing well and had a good welcome, Dion. Thank you for joining the live. Had a good welcome, Lisa. A good Monday. One of those trying days probably to even get out of bed to go to work after a long weekend. Well, not so long weekend, but weekend. Forever Humble 13, welcome. Thank you for joining the live. Please do like and share so that others can come and join us, so that we can encourage each other, especially if anybody is going through the process of grief, of loss, of a loved one. We want to talk about the pathway to healing from grief, from loss. Welcome, Shorty. Thank you for joining. Share the live, like, so that we can get others into the room and that the live can be ranked also. So thank you all for joining. And while we wait on others to join, I am Fabian, and I am here to basically share from my own experience of grief, which inspired me to record my thoughts, my emotions, my contemplations as I went through the process. Having lost my aunt in 2023, somebody who was like she was like a second mom. She was my second mom. She was there from birth to the point of her demise, just like my maternal mother, who is her sister. And so in going through the process of grieving her, had the presence of mind, the inspiration really, to just chronicle what my emotions were, my contemplations, my reflections, into a book that I self-published in her memory, titled Seeds of Tears, Harvest of Joy, A Journey Through Grief. And yeah, so one of the aims of this process is to share the contents of that book. Hopefully it can encourage somebody who might be grieving the loss of a loved one towards the path to healing. Losing somebody close to you is not a very easy experience to go through. It can be quite burdensome. So if we can lighten the load in any way, then certainly I'd really like to offer my own experience of grief to lighten somebody's load. So welcome Karen Scotland, welcome God's Master Pie, Novia Forbes 85, welcome. User 2459, etc. Welcome. Jenny Dakinat, welcome. Welcome all to the live. We want to just share with each other this evening about grief from personal experience. If you have lost somebody, drop it in the chat. Let us hear from you. Have you lost somebody who is dear to you recently? Or it might be some time might have passed, like myself, 2 years or more, because there's not a determinate end to grief necessarily. The passage of time allows us to separate ourselves from the immediate and raw impact of grief. And therefore, over time, the wound that grief creates becomes healed to an extent, yet unhealed in many respects. Because sometimes you might be going about your business very happily go lucky, and just a memory of your beloved can trigger you to break down, essentially. So let's hear from you guys. Chef Noel, welcome. Suzette Phillips, thank you for joining. We are going to be just exploring at least as many strategies, if you want to call that, towards the path to healing when you have lost a loved one this evening. And as shared before, my name is Fabian, and I am the author of 2 titles that I self-published through Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. The first one is Musings of the Mind, prose to encourage, inspire, and uplift. And the second is Seeds of Tears, Harvest of Joy, A Journey Through Grief, which was published in 2023, or 2024 rather, just about a year after the passing of my aunt, who would have caused me to be inspired to write this title here. So I'm going to be sharing with you from the title itself, an entry this evening, as well as talk through some of the steps that or some of the things we have to do if we are to heal from our grief. And again, healing, you can put healing in quotations too. So, beautiful Prince, is that it? Thank you for joining. Babyface, welcome. Kevroy, thank you for joining, sir. Veronica, thank you for joining. Suzette Phillips, thank you for joining. Please share the live, like, so that others can know that we're on. Chef Noel Kumi, thank you for joining. Raj Dulari Singh, thank you for joining. Rookwood's Funeral Services, thank you for joining, sir. Everybody, thank you for joining. I hope you will be able to stay with us to the end as we look at ways to heal from grief. So one of the entries that I have chronicled in Seeds of Tears, Harvest of Joy, A Journey Through Grief is letting go. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about also as one of the steps, one of the things that I think that we have to do if we are to realize some degree of healing from our loss. And so it reads, letting go. Relinquishing grief can be compared to our attempt to relieve ourselves of a bad habit, which has become second nature to our way of life. The longer we hold on to grief, the more we are likely to separate ourselves from the things which form part of our routine prior to being plunged into this emotional state of abeyance. Lest we forget, a phrase often used on Remembrance Day in reference to World War II comes to mind. Does letting go mean we forget our loss and our loved ones who have passed? That would amount to an impossible proposition. Letting go means we recall, but we get back into life and our routines. The things we would have continued to enjoy and partake of before grief visited our domain. Letting go means we continue to dream, to hope, to continue in faith. Letting go means we accept death as part of our existence or journey. Indeed, each of us is journeying towards this ultimate end. Letting go means we know that death is not the end. Letting go means we fear not the unknown, since we knew not our beginning. Imagine that. And equally know not our ending. Letting go means we make peace with our limitations in a limitless universe. Letting go means we avail ourselves of the happenstance of life. Letting go means we free ourselves during life's challenges, grief included, to live, to thrive, to experience joy, happiness, love, faith, mercy, and grace. Letting go means to encounter peace. And at the end of each of these entries in the book, we're invited to pause and harvest. And so release. Over time, release yourself from the turmoil of grief. Unlike a given sickness, there is no prescribed medication available. Healing lies in our conscious decision to move ahead, undergirded by the passage of time. Letting go might not be easy, but it is necessary. Right? So that was letting go, one of the entries from Seeds of Tears, Harvest of Joy, A Journey Through Grief. So, but how do we engage the process of healing from grief? What are some of the things that we might have to do in order to move along that pathway, to say that we can say that we have experienced healing, that we are healed from the pain of our loss. And this is going to happen over time. Welcome Cecile Watkins and Ron C. Campbell, welcome. Rage 2.0, welcome. Thank you for joining. We're talking about ways to healing from grief this evening. And I just shared with those who would have been on entry, letting go, from one of my titles, Seeds of Tears, Harvest of Joy, Journey Through Grief. as we work through some of those things that we can do to heal from this very life-altering experience that grief is, right? One of the first things I think that we have to do, and I think I had to go through that process, and anybody who has lost anybody would need to really go through that process. Welcome, Jay. Please like and share the live so that we can have others come on and it can be rated, ranked. And if you're on, please, there's that orange button up there top beside Fabes. Tap it to get your engagement points if you are so inclined, and claim your engagement points. Thank you, Jay, for liking. Thank you. Welcome, Horace. So continue to like and continue to share. Maybe somebody you can invite, somebody who is grieving at this time or is down for whatever reason, and they can find some encouragement in this live to uplift their spirits as we talk through these points. So yeah, I was saying that one of the first things that I think we have to do is to engage our grief. We can't deny what has transpired, what has happened. When grief appears at our doorstep, we essentially are forced to open that door of this unwelcomed guests, essentially, and invite them in. I don't think we have much of a choice but to do so, right? Because if we are in denial, then that is not going to serve us in terms of overcoming our loss. So we have to engage with the process of grieving. We have to allow ourselves to feel all the emotions that comes with grief and how it might manifest itself for each of us. Each of us are different individually, right? We have introverts, we have extroverts in terms of personality types. So we know that we all deal with things differently, whether it be grief or something else. We're not all going to have the same approach or response to how we deal with our grief. And so once grief appears at our doorstep, we really have to avail ourselves to going through the motions essentially and embracing however it presents itself, right? So as mentioned, acknowledge the reality of our loss, right? And this is going to help us to acknowledge and accept the death and the absence that it occasions by not having that person that we have lost in our lives anymore, right? So we have to acknowledge it, and we have to be so present that if we have a challenge or it becomes difficult or too burdensome in that process of our grief, that we have to be so aware of what is happening to us that we can also reach out for help or lean on somebody who you can just talk to if you want to talk, or somebody who could just come and sit with you, just to be there, a presence that is going to be there just to assist you with anything that you might need assistance with as you go through the process of grieving your loved one. Welcome, Dimple Williams. Like and share the live. Thank you for joining. And just to be with you. So in acknowledging the process of our grief, which is something that I think I had to do, and allow myself to grieve, right? Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to grieve, especially men who society tells us that we are supposed to be so hardened and tough, in a sense, not to show emotion. So you might not shed a tear even though you are going through this traumatic experience of loss. And when we bottle up our emotions inside, it can have negative outcomes in terms of how we deal with things. Some persons might become very hostile and angry easily, and you can take out that level of anger on people, and might even end up hurting somebody in the process because you have not processed and dealt with your grief. So we have to embrace the process of grieving. We can't avoid it. There's only one way to overcome grief when it presents itself to us, and that is for us to go through the process of grieving. We have to go through the process of grieving. We have to engage with the process of grieving. We can't stay in denial, because that is not going to help us, right? Denial might be a natural response, but at some point we have to move beyond denial, because the evidence will be there. The person who we have lost would have simply, gone, right? In my case, my aunt passed at the hospital. I took her there to the emergency room just after 5 o'clock on February 20th, 2023, and within probably 3 hours later she was gone, right? So we have to engage with our grief. We can't deny it, because the evidence will be there that the person is no longer with us, right? They're not going to be coming back. We can't call them forth like Jesus called Lazarus from the dead. We wish we could, but I don't know of any such instance that has happened in the world probably since those times, right? So we have to accept reality. It might take us some time to accept that we have lost our loved one and they are no longer going to be around, but ultimately we have to come to terms with that by accepting that, this person is now gone from our lives, and we have to find those coping mechanisms that is going to allow us to be able to go on, right? Sorry. So we have to process the pain of grief, right? So we have to process the pain of grief. I had to process the pain of my own grief, and I think that was one of the ways that I did that. Certainly was to basically pen in my thoughts. When the emotions came, sometimes after a period of tears, I was able to record thereafter what those emotions that I was feeling in terms of contemplative thoughts, whatever came to me, I just, penned it out, right? And that's how this came about, which I published in my aunt's memory. So we have to engage our grief. We can't pretend that this never happened, because it happened. Difficult as it is, and we have to give ourselves time and grace too. One of the things that people sometimes tell you when you're grieving, for example, is that you must stop bawl now, which can be irritating, right? That you must stop bawl now, or something along those lines. That doesn't really help, right? It's as if they want to deny you of the process of going through your grief, of acknowledging that you have suffered this great loss. And it's not that everybody doesn't respond to grief in the same way. Some persons are going to shed tears. Some persons will become quiet and withdrawn, for example, more reflective. Others may try to become very active to try and mask their pain and their grief, by taking on all sorts of roles and routines to try and not deal with the fact that this has happened. But ultimately, the healthier thing to do is to embrace the process of grieving and to walk through it, right? When the storm comes, we all have to go through the storm. We have to batten down and take whatever precautions we can to protect life and property, but we can't tell the storm to turn back. essentially. And grief is essentially one of those storms of our lives that we have to contend with and go through. So when that storm of grief arrives at our doorstep, we really have to embrace it. It is the only way that we are going to be able to overcome. So we have to process grief, encourage the expression of emotional pain rather than avoidance, right? So if you're gonna cry, cry. Don't let anybody tell you or try to convince you that it's time to stop bawl, for example. The tears will dry eventually, right? And just like the body knows how to process trauma, if you get a cut, for example, on your body, after a few days, the body will start to heal itself. The cut will start to dry up and scabs will start to form on it to close the wound. So the body will tell you essentially when it's that time for you to stop, or when the tears will stop flowing for your loved one. But certainly embrace those emotions, right? Don't avoid them, because it's part of the process of overcoming. It's part of the process of how we are going to heal from our loss. And if we have to seek help, some people might need help along that journey, and there are always grief therapists that somebody can reach out to. If you don't want to go to therapy, you can speak to somebody. If you're in a church, you can speak to a trusted church brother, sister, your pastor, or you can get professional help to get you over that hurdle of grief and the emotions, the desolation really that grief brings upon us at times, especially if you were very, very close to the person that passed, right? So those are some of the steps that we can take in the process of acknowledging our grief and engaging with that process so that we can overcome eventually, right? It's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a journey. Some people it will take months. It may take years for other persons to really and truly put the loss behind them. So thank you for joining Drew Berry. Please share the live. Nissim, thank you for joining. Thank you for following also. Please share and comment, like, claim your engagement points at that orange tab up the top there from the live, and continue to listen, like and share and follow. Thank you for the follow. Thank you. And we're talking grief. So for those of us who have just joined, if you have lost somebody recently, or it might not be so recently, but you're still feeling that loss, we're talking through encouraging, seeking to uplift you along that journey. So hopefully your burden becomes a little bit lighter as we speak through these steps or stages that we can take as we seek to heal from our loss. So we said before that we really have to acknowledge our loss, right? We can't pretend that it didn't happen, and we can't avoid it. So we have to acknowledge our loss. We have to engage, feel all the emotions that comes with it, the positive and even the negative ones. Because if we suppress our emotions, suppress our grief, it could turn into other things. It could lead to anxiety, it could lead to depression, physical symptoms, right? And if we have loved ones, for example, or even ourselves who might suffer from underlying conditions, if we're not engaging with our grief in a healthy way, it could adversely impact our own health. So it's in our best interest to ensure that we are processing our grief in a healthy way. And part of that is to allow ourselves to feel the emotions and express them and seek us help if we need to, so that we don't fall into periods of anxiety or depression, or our own health becomes adversely impacted by our experience of the grief that we are facing. One of the things we also have to do is to adjust to a world without our beloved, or our loved one, or a friend who would have left us. Right? We have to adjust to life without them, essentially, and that's a part of the process of acceptance too. Once we are able to arrive at the port of acceptance of the fact that this is what it is now, and that we won't have the pleasure of their company anymore, and the many benefits that we might have been able to reap from them, or just their presence, just to know that you can always, if you need to speak to them, take up the phone, call them, take up the phone, WhatsApp them, go to see them. That opportunity is no longer there. So we have to come to terms and adjust with the fact that they are no longer a part of our reality. That a link in our chain of life has been broken, has been taken out, and we now have to seek to mend ourselves, mend the chain somehow, in order to continue without them. Puma Heart, welcome, thank you for joining. One Miss Lou, thank you for joining. Justina Witton, thank you for joining. So we have to accept the fact that they are no longer with us, and find the courage and the strength to move on without them, right? We have to find adaptation methods. Our routines might have to change, or probably even our identity might change, right? Some of the things that I've seen even here on TikTok when people talk about grief is that you're not the same person after you have lost somebody who was close to you, right? Something has changed. Even sometimes the way that you look at life has changed. I think from my own vantage point, my experience having lost my aunt, I think I look differently at life as a part of that process. And I think one of the things that I no longer try to do, or it becomes more real in terms of, for example, attachments. So one of the things that we attach ourselves to in life, faced with death, it just seems meaningless. Death itself causes the question, what is the point of life? Especially when somebody dies suddenly on you without notice. It causes you to question life. What is the point really? We are here and we are toiling to achieve and to do this and to do that, and at the snap of a finger you can't just dead and gone and leave everything. What is the point at the end of the day? What is the point? Maybe you can answer that for me. What is the point of life? That's one of the questions, the ponderings that one has when faced with death, the death of a loved one. What really is the point? Sorry. We're going about our business, we are doing this, we are doing that. We are acquiring all these things in this world, things that can't fit in our casket or the urn. So what is the point? What really is the point? Well, maybe the point is not these things in the world that we are acquiring. Maybe the point is that we are to just love each other, to be there for each other, be our brother's keeper, be neighborly, live peaceably with each person, help somebody else rise. Maybe that is the point, because it certainly can't be the material things, the vanity of the world that we all desire and strive after. Thank you, Don. What you done for the likes? Thank you, and welcome to the live as we explore some steps towards healing from grief and talk through some of the emotions and contemplations that we often entertain when we lose a loved one. So yeah, what's the point? Sometimes it really causes to question life. When I go back home sometimes, and I go into my aunt's room and I see all the things, her clothes, her shoes, or this or that, and all the assets that she gone left, you just wonder, what is the point? What really is the point? We really strive to achieve all of this, and then our lives can be cut short. We don't get to enjoy them. Somebody else is left to make use of them, of our labor, our sweat, because all these things can't be placed in our caskets. But once we are faced with that, we have to continue. The living has to live, right? We have no option but to live, and so we have to embrace the grieving process in order to overcome and to continue to live. Live for ourselves and live in the memory of those who we have lost. Right? So, without them, our identity sometimes change. Right? Or routines might have to change. If you have lost your wife or your husband, for example, certainly your routines would be affected. If you lost a child who was probably, going through school, your routines would have to change. You no longer have somebody to go and pick up or drop off, and take from one place to the other after school activities, etc. So it's a life-altering experience when we lose a loved one. So we can, in adjusting to life without them, we have to kind of come to a new way of being, in a sense, as to things that we would normally do with them that we are no longer able to do with them. So we have to now take on new routines, right? As part of that process. Develop a continuing bond with the deceased. And I think one of the things that we can do to kind of immortalize those that we have loved and have lost is to probably consider what are some of the things that they would normally do or like doing that they would appreciate, right? And we can take on some of those things or create some kind of activity that seeks to honor their memory. So my aunt used to do exercising, for example. She walked in the mornings. So when I go back home to where we all lived before I moved out on my own, I sometimes walk the trail that she would normally walk. Right? You might want to visit their final resting place on their birthdays, for example. You could do that, or the anniversary of their passing or burial, to remember and recall them. You might want to, depending on their occupation or what they did for a living, create some form of a scholarship or something along those lines. How can we immortalize their memory, right? Because the person might be gone physically, but the memories and the life that they live, if they made an impact, will certainly live on. It lives on in our memory. It lives on in us because we were touched by them. in some way, shape, or form. And so we have the benefit of recalling that they would have lived. Right? So we can immortalize them. So in as much as they're missing away from us physically, we can immortalize them. Do things that will help us to get over the fact that they're gone, but remember them in a positive and happy way. Right? We have to reinvest in life and move forward. And that is what was the essence of letting go, as I shared earlier. Right? Sorry, my coughing is up on me. Letting go. We have to release our loved ones. We can't hold on to the loss that we have faced. We have to really release them. We have to release them, because that is also one of the ways that we are going to heal from the loss that we have suffered. We have to release them. When we get a cut, for example, right? If you continue to play with the cut on the wound, what's going to happen to that wound? The wound is likely to become infected, and if the wound becomes infected, then it means that it's going to take a longer time for it to heal. And I think that's one of the kind of simplistic ways I look at the whole aspect of letting go, because if we want to heal, I don't think we can keep reminding ourselves or being in that place where we are overcome or overpowered by our grief. Narissa, welcome. Oreen Bar 3, thank you for joining. Welcome. We're talking about grief and how we can heal from our grief. John Daly, welcome. Pochidan, thank you for those many likes that you have been sending up. Appreciated. Others, if you're here, please do likewise, like the live. So yeah, we have to let go. We have to release our loved ones once they have passed. We can't keep on holding on to the pain of the loss, because if we continue to hold on to the pain of the loss, it's going to be more difficult for us to heal and to move on, to move forward with life, right? There are many things that I'm sure when we lose people in our lives still depends on us to do, to get it done. So we can't just throw up our hands and say, woe is me, essentially. We have to muster that courage, that will to move on with life. Is it Ernest Smith that sings life is just for living? And life really is for the living. As much as we miss our loved ones when they leave us and we are devastated by it, life remains for us who are alive to live. So we have to live in the face of our loss, and we have to move on. So we have to let go. We have to release them. Release them. We have to release the fact that they are gone. We can't keep on holding on to them and holding on to the pain. We really have to reach that point where we release them, right? And as I read earlier from the entry, letting go, what does that mean though? Letting go means we recall but get back into life. Our routines, the things we would have continued to enjoy and partake of before grief visited our domain. Letting go means we continue to dream, to hope, to continue in faith. Letting go means we accept death as part of our existence, our journey. Indeed, each of us is journeying towards the ultimate end. Letting go means we know that death is not the end. Letting go means we fear not the unknown, since we knew not our beginning, and equally know not our ending. Letting go means we make peace with our limitations in a limitless universe. Letting go means we make peace with our limitations again in a limitless universe. Letting go means we avail ourselves of the happenstance of life. Letting go means we free ourselves during life's challenges, grief included, to live, to thrive, to experience joy, happiness, love, faith, mercy, and grace, to encounter peace. And I think that that last sentence, to encounter peace, is where what they said, the nail, the nail on the head, or the nail on the head with that, because peace really comes with letting go, and it doesn't have to be even related to grieving. Anything else, any other challenges that we might come upon in our lives, sometimes you just need to let it go, to not hold on to it, because our peace really depends on it. If we're obsessing about things that we can't change, for example, in this case, like when somebody in our circle passes, there's nothing that we can do that is going to bring them back. We are not Lazarus, who Jesus called from the dead, for example. So there's no coming back. So we really have to release, we have to let them go. It's the only way that we're going to encounter peace and heal from our loss. We have to relinquish the need for control in terms of the things that we can't control and the things that are outside of our control. Welcome, Lily. Journet Turner 53, thank you for joining. Like and follow if you're so moved, as we wind down a talk on grief and how we deal with grief, the path to healing. And we're talking about letting go, that we really have to let go in order to realize or achieve peace and move on. And it's not that we're going to forget about our loved ones, because we can never forget them, especially if they were very impactful in our lives. But in order to heal, we have to take that step towards releasing them, releasing our loss, releasing our grief, in order to find peace, right? Because it's not something that is within our control. We can't control it. There's nothing that we could do or we can do to bring them back. And so, along that pathway to peace, to healing from our loss, lies the need for us to let go, to release them, to release our grief, and accepting the fact that they have moved on, they have gone away from us. So it's not easy, but when dealing with grief, I have, based on my experience, it is said that time heals all wounds, and there's a bit of truth to that. But in grief, the passage of time takes you away further away from the point of impact. It takes you away from the rawness of your grief. Sorry. So when you get up, again, I use the analogy of a wound. When you get a wound, in the immediate aftermath of having gotten that wound, when it's bleeding, for example, and depending on how deep the wound is, the nerves, etc., along that part of the wound is so sensitive and it might hurt, right? But over time, as you begin to dress it and put ointment on it, and the body begins to naturally heal that wound by scabs now coming over it to close it, to protect it from infection, etc., then the rawness and the soreness of the wound begins to ease over time as the healing process takes place. Loss is, in my estimation, similar to that. It's a wound that will take time to heal. And with the passage of time, as time passes, the days turns to weeks, the weeks turns to months, the months turn to years, you are able to carry the grief because it becomes lighter. So in the immediate aftermath of my aunt's passing, for example, I was breaking down regularly. So I got bereavement leave. So she died the Monday, February 20th. I didn't go back to work until the following week because I got I think it was 5 days or so bereavement leave. Throughout that week, tears. And even when I went back to work, I was still in that process, that process of probably not accepting, but embracing the emotional manifestation of my grief, which was through tears. Replaying the events in my mind and, breaking down ever so often. So we have to allow ourselves to feel. I mean, we have to. It's a part of the process. And as mentioned before, it's not going to manifest itself the same way for everybody. Some might shed tears, some might become more withdrawn, some might become quieter, some might become busier, right? So grief is going to manifest itself differently for each of us because we all have different personalities. For example, some are introverts, some are extroverts. Some will roll, bawl, holler. Others might just be sitting down in a corner with their hand on them head in disbelief. But whatever form it takes, we have to embrace it and find healthy coping methods. Among that could be that you might have a close friend who you can talk to or who might be there to support you. You have grief counselors that you can call upon to avail yourself to their services to get you through that process of grieving. And you might just want to do things that get your mind off of this fact, the fact that you have lost this person. You occupy yourself. You become busier, possibly. Whatever the grief mechanism that that flows naturally for you, I would say embrace it, because it's not a one size fit all, right? And we can't always walk in the other person's shoes in terms of how they experience the process of loss and grieving a loved one. But certainly, the three things that we mentioned is that we have to really embrace the grieving process. We have to accept it. We can't stay in a state of denial Thank you, James, for liking the live, and thank you for joining. We can't stay always in a state of denial. Patricia, thank you for joining. Um, Donit Stewart, thank you for joining. We have to arrive at that place where we accept what has happened, because there's nothing that we can do to change it after it has happened. So we just have to accept that it has happened, and in accepting, hopefully we'll find the courage to move on, to start to move on, right? We have to embrace positive expressions of our grief, whatever form that may take, right? It could be journaling for some. It could be, in my own experience, having the presence of mind to pen what my contemplations, my reflections, my thoughts were, some of which came after just bawling, crying, and after that I was able to write something down, which I'm happy I did, because then I was able to just document my own contemplations, my emotions, my thoughts, and publish them in her honor, in Seeds of Tears, Harvest of Joy, A Journey Through Grief, which is available on Amazon if anyone is interested. Right? Hopefully something in there can get somebody who is experiencing loss and is looking for some light at the end of the tunnel that they're going through, the tunnel of grief, that this will be that for them. And as such, here I am using TikTok as an avenue to share themes from that, in the hope that somebody who needs it will be so blessed by it. So if you are this time, or anybody who you know might be going through a period of grief, of grieving somebody who you have lost, I can only wish for you courage and strength to journey along the path of grief. It's a difficult place to be, but the load of grief gets lighter with the passage of time. So you're not always going to be breaking down, but if that's what it means, then, as I have said in one of my entries in this anthology, break down like an old car until the breakdown stops, right? Because that is a part of you going through the motions of embracing your emotions of grief. There's might not be a predefined period at which you can say that your grief ends, because in some of the reflections that I had, the least thing, you can be going about your business a year, 2 years, 3 years after, and something just happens that triggers you. A memory of your loved one, just comes about, and it triggers you, and it's as if you're back to the very day and time when you would have lost them. So we'll have our moments, but certainly, as I have experienced with the passage of time, the load becomes lighter, and you may be able to say that truly you have experienced some healing from your grief. So if that is you this evening, and you are grieving the loss of a loved one, again, it is my hope, my prayer even, that your seeds of tears will be transformed into a harvest of joy as you mourn, as you grieve, and to say that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that your load will become lighter with the passage of time. So that is what I had to share this evening on Ink and Impact with Fabian as we discuss grief journey, steps towards healing. So we have to acknowledge our grief, we have to find positive expressions, and ultimately we have to release those we have lost in order to move forward. So I pray that you will be able to arrive at the port of release, and that in arriving at the port of release you will find peace and the courage, the strength, the determination to move on. So thank you for joining. Until next time, this has been Ink and Impact with Fabian.